What's going on, Johnny Nation? It is Selection Sunday, and there is so much going on today. St. John's has just done the unthinkable here in Johnny's land. Back to back Big East Conference champs, back to back Big East tournament champions. And well, we're recording in the morning of Selection Sunday. And well, last year, the year before, we only talk to one guy about this stuff. It's one guy that we trust and one guy that we love. Friend of the program, Brad Wachtel, is here with Justin and I. He is the lead bracketologist for Hoops HQ. You can catch all of his stuff every single day on Twitter as he's been updating his thoughts on what has been going on. St. John's is coming into Selection Sunday with this resume. I'm going to give it to you, and then we're going to let Brad take over. St. John's is 28-6. All right. They just won the Big East Conference. They just won the Big East tournament. They are heading into the NCAA tournament winners of 19 of their last 20 games. Their net is 15. Their KenPom is 16. They are 15 in Torvik. All right. St. John's is 5-5 in quad one wins. They are 12-0 in quad two. They do have three quad 1A wins. Very important as they picked up another one yesterday. 13 in WAB, another important stat going into the tournament. So, Brad, walk us through this because last night, lots of talk as the confetti is falling is where is St. John's going? It is no more a question of when or how or if St. John's is going to the tournament. No, that's questions of yesteryear. Now it's about what is St. John's seed and where are they going? So the big question is, will St. John's be a protected top four seed? Are they going to get one of those four seeds in that fourth spot? Brad, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think it's still up in the air. I know we've reached Selection Sunday. St. John's is right there between a 4 and a 5 seed. And if you're taking a look at just the metrics, St. John's should be a top four seed, like everybody, in Johnny Nation thinks. But when you go dig a little deeper and you look at the quadrants, um, St. John's does have a quadrant three loss. And I'm nitpicking here. They have a quadrant three loss. They're 5-5 against quadrant one opponents. And you have to compare that to other teams that are in their seed vicinity and teams like who can they pass? Vanderbilt. Well, Vanderbilt just is in the SEC tournament championship game. Vanderbilt's 9-6 against, I'm sorry, 10-6 against quadrant one opponents. Um, Kansas is 9-9. Kansas also has wins over Houston. They have wins over Tennessee and Iowa State and Arizona. So, maybe there's one team that sticks out a little bit in Alabama that St. John's can pass. And I think what it comes down to ultimately, St. John's is Big East regular season champs. They're Big East tournament champs. Does the committee say, you know what, maybe they don't have the numbers in the quadrants? The Big East as a whole was not as good as some of these other power conferences. Um, but look, they won both the tournament and the regular season. Could they sneak up to a four seed? My personal opinion, I think they absolutely can. However, not only are you trying to pass Alabama, you're also trying to pass a team like a Wisconsin, who is a five seed at the moment for me. And look who Wisconsin's beaten. Wisconsin has won at Illinois, at Michigan, at Purdue, beat Illinois in a neutral court, beat Michigan State. Now, St. John's has the better metrics, though. And the way St. John's beat UConn last night is only going to help their cause. If they are fortunate enough to get on that four line, I think, yes, there's a chance they could get sent to Philly. That is definitely in the realm of possibilities. However, if St. John's is the fourth number four seed, they go whatever city is left, basically. Could that be Philly? It could be Philly. There's definitely a possibility what that is. One thing I do know, I know they will not get sent to Oklahoma City. I know they will not get sent to St. Louis because those are going to be, I'm sorry, to Buffalo either, because Buffalo is going to be Michigan, Michigan State, and those are going to be the ones and the two seeds, and there's not going to be a four seed in that pod. So I would say all those other cities are still open. They're on the cusp of a four seed. I wish I could read into the future. I do the best I can to try to predict what the committee is going to do. I have them as a five seed right now. But it would not shock me if they are a four seed.
Okay. It's just for transparency of everybody. We are recording this at about 9:30 in the morning on Selection Sunday. We will find out in about 6:30 or so about that's when we should find out. So for everybody thinking that Brad can't look into his crystal ball, he's literally trying to look, 12 hours into the future here. Brad, you just said a lot of really important and interesting things. First, the distinguish to distinguish between Alabama and St. John's. Obviously, the two played earlier in the season, second game of the year. Alabama's backcourt absolutely took care of St. John's in that game. Two teams that kind of trending in different directions towards the end of the year. So, how much stock does that get put into, obviously the head-to-head matchup, but it was a very long time ago. And like you said, yesterday's absolute domination of UConn, uh, with that perhaps, recency bias and like, hey, what have you done for me lately? How much does that factor in?
It factors in a little bit. I mean, everybody on the committee is human. Um, but, as we saw at the top 16 reveal a few weeks ago, the committee did mention head-to-head being a factor when it came to determining, the number one seeds. Uh, Having the fact that Alabama beat St. John's at St. John's I think will play a role. I do. Now, who did Alabama lose to in the conference tournament? They lost to Ole Miss, who's in 15th place. So, look, there's a human touch to it, and I would think the human touch, like, how do you not reward St. John's for what they did, for winning both the regular season and the tournament? Alabama didn't do either of that. But head to head will come into play. You just have to wonder, is the human side going to be in it? And that's obviously something as a bracketologist we can't predict that. I mean, but look, I think it's going to be a challenge, and they have the one thing that's there is that head-to-head matchup. Even though it happened so long ago, it still happened.
Would you say that St. John's ceiling is up there with some of these one and two seeds who obviously have their eyes on a Final Four? Or would you say that St. John's is like upside is somewhere around a Sweet 16, somewhere in that 4 or 5 range, based on what you've seen, over the last month or so, where I think St. John's has obviously turned a corner, and some of these other teams, like in Alabama, are still taking some bad losses. I mean, we played Ole Miss earlier this year. It was an ugly game, but St. John's did pull it out. Conversely, Alabama obviously took the loss, just last week.
Yeah, look, I think in Duke, Michigan, and Arizona, those three number one seeds are definitely a step up, against the rest of the field. So getting that 4 or 5 seed is going to be a challenge for St. John's. Yeah, the Sweet 16 absolutely can get there. Who are they going to face? Duke, Michigan, Arizona, or could they get a Florida? Now, Florida has been as hot as anybody in the country up until yesterday when they lost to Vanderbilt and got smoked.
Yeah.
Look, if St. John's is going to play the way that they played yesterday, why not?
Hmm.
Why not? Why can't they compete with them? I think it's surely a possibility with the momentum that they got going with obviously Patino and his experience coaching in the NCAA tournament. I mean, you arguably have the best coach in college basketball. So I wouldn't really give them a ceiling. I think it would be a great challenge and a great upset if they got past the Sweet 16, having to face one of the Duke, Michigan, Arizona, or Floridas.
A few more for you here, Brad. What would potentially be the impact if Arkansas wins against Vandy today?
I don't think it's going to have any impact on the bracket. I think Arkansas should be locked in as a 5 seed, and I think Vanderbilt, with what they've done, I don't see them being worse than a 4 seed. Um, they just have too many strong wins, and they just got that win over Florida on a neutral court. I think that kind of cements them as a 4 seed. So I don't think there's going to be any significant changes to the bracket other than the fact that, you have the Atlantic 10 going on, whether or not VCU wins. And then, of course, the final automatic bids out of the Ivy League and, of course, the AAC. But in terms of Vanderbilt, Arkansas, I don't think it's going
Okay.
to change anything.
My follow-up to that was, is there any impact of Dayton winning and being a bid thief?
So that's where it gets difficult. So VCU right now, since they're the higher rated seed, they are the auto bid. But if VCU loses, it's going to come down to, in my opinion, it's going to come down to three teams, and that's VCU, Texas, SMU. And one of those teams will get left out. And in VCU's case, they don't have any wins over at-large teams.
Mhm.
Texas has 14 losses. They're 17 and 14 and 7 and 13 against quad one and two opponents. And SMU has a poor record against quad one and two as well, but SMU also has a significant injury to BJ Edwards, and we don't know if he's
Sure.
going to even play in the NCAA tournament, even though SMU came out with a statement saying he will play. So it's going to be a challenge to sift through. If we're looking at strictly metrics, I think VCU could still get in, but I have a hard time imagining them putting in three teams from the Atlantic 10.
Okay, well, our resident bracketologist here on the show, Vin Ochani, with helping us kind of guide us through this for you here. So, shout out to Vin, who we just got off the phone with before we got you here. Brad, just final thoughts here on St. John's and your thoughts of them, kind of how they're trending into Selection Sunday, into the tournament, and perhaps what you think really the momentum they have going into this tournament means, uh, because the confidence level in Queens, the confidence level for St. John's fans right now, is absolutely as high as the Empire State Building.
Yeah, so the term in baseball is you're only as good as your next day's starting pitcher. In college basketball, it all depends on your opponent. They have as much momentum as any team in the country, but who are they getting matched up against? I think that's the key. What's their path? Their path to a Final Four is what matters. The seeding is not nearly as important as your path. So St. John's needs to be matched up with the right teams, with the right, one seed. They're going to be in that 4 or 5 game. So if they get to a Sweet 16, it's going to be that one seed.
All right,
So
so
it's
Brad, hold
all.
on.
Mhm.
Okay, if you're St. John's, who is the potential one seed that you would most rather face that you perhaps think is the best matchup for St. John's?
That's a great question. Look, right now, I don't think I want to play Arizona with the way they're playing.
I agree.
I think they have the argument of being the number one overall seed. They won't be. It's going to be Duke.
Hmm.
Um, Now, I think there's some questions that go into it because Duke is obviously not 100%.
That's true.
They're missing two key players. So are they going to be? I think Caleb Foster's ruled out for the season. Their other injured player should be back. Uh, Now, I guess I would have to say Florida based on the way they played yesterday, that was kind
Mm.
of eye-opening. Um, and and look, even though Florida has been one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in the country prior to yesterday, you put St. John's in that category too. They don't have the type of wins, the overall wins that Duke, Michigan, or Arizona have. So I think in an ideal world, you are paired up with Florida, and you know, go from there.
Wow, man, it is an incredible Sunday here in New York. Brad Wachtel, thank you for a few minutes joining us to preview what is going to be an absolutely phenomenal day in Queens. Selection Sunday festivities happening on campus at Carnesecca Arena, Johnny Nation. If you're going, enjoy it. Cherish these moments because there haven't been a lot of them for St. John's lately. But hey, just like Rick Pitino and Zuby Ejiofor climbing that ladder at Madison Square Garden on Saturday night, cutting down the nets is becoming sort of a tradition in Queens. Back to back, they're doing it. And champions of the Big East, champions of the Big East tournament. He's Brad Wachtel. And, there's nobody that I'd rather talk to about all of this stuff on Selection Sunday. Thank you. It's the busiest time of the year and appreciate it. Let's see what you're right. I mean, we got a few hours here and certainly we'll check in with you afterwards. Appreciate a few minutes, Brad.
All right, thanks, guys.
All
Take care.
right. Johnny Nation, thank you so much. Let's see what happens here in a few hours, and Red Storm await their fate. Get those wallets ready because it's time to travel. It's time to book hotels. It's time to possibly book some flights, and we'll see what happens. Let's see where the Red Storm end up. Rick Pitino and the Johnnies are flying high. It's Selection Sunday. Enjoy it.